Hey guys, questions about the Souvenir of Companionship keep coming in, so today we're gonna talk about it. By the way, the Souvenir of Companionship is something that in version 2.8 you can purchase from the shop with real money. This will cost you 30 bucks, it will give you 10 unilogs and a character out of the standard pool all the way up to version 2.8. There are two other things here that also come in very handy and even combine together with the Souvenir of Companionship very well. Those are the Promise of the Water banner, where you can choose a character to pull for. Which characters you can exactly pull for? The same rules apply here as with the Souvenir of Companionship. We will go into this a little bit in more detail in just a second. We also get a portrait selector which improves the Souvenir of Companionship and the Promise of the Water banner quite heavily, to be honest. But now, first of all, keep in mind that everything that I will say about the Souvenir of Companionship also applies to the Promise of the Water banner, with the only exception, of course, that the Promise of the Water banner doesn't cost you any money. You just choose a character and you pull for this character. It's a create your own banner kind of thing. So if you are like, I will stay free to play no matter what, I will never spend any money in this game ever, then you are not left behind, but you have the option to just pull for a character with your saved up unilogs. There you go. But also, if you would ever consider spending money onto this game, this Souvenir of Companionship is like by far the best thing you could ever purchase, so keep that in mind, please. Now let's talk about what are actually the best options and which characters should you buy from this Souvenir of Companionship. The very first rule that has to be established is that you want to aim at full price characters. What do I mean by that? I mean that you don't pick characters that are right now or were in the past part of a Euphoria banner. Also, don't pick characters that will be part of Euphoria banners in the near future. For example, Semmelweis. If you want to obtain Semmelweis, you pull on the Euphoria banner in 2.8. You don't grab her from the Souvenir, right? Same goes for Getian. We know he will be part of the Euphoria banner in version 3.0. So you don't grab him there, right? A-Knight and Argus will be part of the Euphoria banner in version 3.1. Then Eternity, Medicine Pocket, and so on and so forth. You know, you get the point. Don't pick characters that are or will be part of Euphoria banners, because you can obtain them for cheaper, and that would make the value of the Souvenir of Companionship less. Now I have to mention something here, because I am also in this scenario of all the characters that are like the highest possible value to get from the Souvenir of Companionship. I don't need any of those. I have all of them. I know the characters that are the highest value and I pulled for them in the past. I have everyone, right? I don't need any character. But I also don't want to lose or miss out on the value that this Souvenir of Companionship has, even if I can't get the maximum of value out of it, right? It's still insane. So therefore I am actually considering getting a character that will be part of a Euphoria banner, like for example Getian. I plan to pull for Getian. I will pull for Getian in version 3.0. Now, if I would get him out of the Souvenir of Companionship, I would save the unilogs right there. You see, this is not the most amount of value, because I could obtain Getian for cheap, since he's part of a Euphoria banner, you know? But I don't need any other character from the Souvenir. But I still want to buy it, because it is just that gigantic of a value, you know? We don't get a purchase of this value like anywhere ever, you know, so why would I miss out on it? I think I will still buy it and grab Gentian. That's something that I wanted to mention, that if you are in this scenario of you don't need any of the characters that I'm about to mention in a second, you can still go for something that you miss, and then you don't have to pull on a Euphoria banner in the future, right? It is an option that I wanted to tell you about, and that is something that I will probably do. Alright, now let's get to the actual point and talk about what should you pull, like Straw Hat. What is the best character I can possibly obtain myself from this Souvenir of Companionship? And the Oscar goes to, you guessed it, Fatutu. That is what makes this Souvenir of Companionship and the Promise of the Water banner so extremely high value. You know, if you watched my previous videos where we established the pull plan, you know that you don't walk out of the version 2.8 without Nautica, Lucy and Fatutu in your bag. If you don't have Fatutu, you buy the Souvenir of Companionship, or you pull for Fatutu in the Promise of the Water banner. And if you don't do that, you make a huge mistake and you miss out like crazy. Fatutu is definitely 100%, no discussion, no question, your number one pick here from the Souvenir of Companionship. If you already have Fatutu, then what you're gonna do? What's the next best value? And there are two characters here on the table for and up for discussion. One of them is Aleph and the other character is Recoleta. That is because those are the two characters that are brand new, and both of them are very, very high tier in the meta and part of like really good teams, make up an archetype even in terms of Recoleta. In version 2.7, for example, we got access to Hisabeth and Keparina, but those are not part of the standard pool in version 2.8. Those join in version 3.0. Those will therefore not be available in the Souvenir of Companionship. So then we have to go back to version 2.6 and see what got released there. The answer are, in fact, Aleph and Recoleta. Now, Aleph is part of the third best team in the game with Impromptu. He's the best in slot there. And remember what I told you about the portrait selector. This one comes in very clutch for Aleph because his P1 is extremely high value. It's one of the best portraits you can possibly pick if we like talk about this portrait selector, right? Then we have Recoleta, who is the number one best main DPS for the ultimate archetype and like defines how good this team actually is. She's paired with, as you know, with Melania, and that's her partner in crime. They make up one of the best teams in the game as well. And what Recoleta has above Aleph is that she's a main DPS. Aleph is quote-unquote only a support, and you know that main DPS characters always have the highest amount of value when it comes to team building. Those are the characters that teams are built around. So always main DPS first, right? It's like a rule of thumb that I stressed a lot in the past as well. Here in this scenario, when it comes to Aleph versus Recoleta though, there is a specific scenario that occurs for both of these characters actually. Like, of course, if you don't play Impromptu, then Aleph is irrelevant for you, right? Needless to say. And yeah, this also is another very good point to make for why Fatutu is number one. Fatutu is the best in slot, sustained for every single team in the game basically. So you cannot go, there's no scenario where Fatutu would not be the number one pick here. Just saying again. So if you don't play Impromptu, Aleph is of course irrelevant. That is needless to say. Now Recoleta is very valuable, but there is a huge bummer with Recoleta, even though she's the best main DPS. But also, like, if you have Fatutu and you have Aleph, or you don't play Impromptu, then you pick Recoleta regardless, right? Easy to say, but Recoleta is not 100% like totally needed to pick up, because we get a new character for free in version 2.8 with Buddy Fatfuck. He is also a main DPS for the Ultimate Archetype team. Of course, he's nowhere near on the level of a Recoleta, but he's free, you know, and also a main DPS for the Ultimate Archetype team. That's why the value of Recoleta here drops a little bit, as Fatutu and Aleph are way better option, mainly because Buddy Fatfuck will exist. So you don't, even if you want to create the Ultimate Archetype team, you don't really need Recoleta. You would get away by picking Buddy Fatfuck. But again, remember, Recoleta is much better, much more future-proof in everything, right? She outclasses Buddy Fatfuck in every single possible way, and hardcore. I just wanted to mention that Fat Squirrel once, because it is important for new players that if you are brand new and you have other priorities like Fatutu, like Aleph, like maybe even Flutterpage, who is another very good pick from this souvenir, then you grab all of those characters, of course above Recoleta, and then you go for the time being with Buddy Fatfuck as your main DPS for the Ultimate Archetype team. Alright, now with all of this knowledge established, let's go over this one more time and actually make a kind of a list. The number one pick, Fatutu, no question, that is what you get if you don't have it. There's no way around it. Then it becomes a little bit more interesting with who takes spot number 2. Because here, that's the point where we have to talk a little bit about specific scenarios. Because, as I said, that you can combine the Souvenir of Companionship with the Promise of the Water Banner. And if you don't have the two, right, you're gonna obtain Fatutu no matter what. If you buy the Souvenir of Companionship and you have enough resources to pull on the Promise of the Water Banner, and you don't have Fatutu and Flutterpage, then you should go for this duo, actually. Then Fatutu would be number 1, and her partner in crime is Flutterpage. These two are a completely busted, broken duo that you can build every single team in the game around, and it's always gonna be good. These two have so much versatility, they are such monsters. They should always go together, if somehow possible. Now I will go with this scenario that most players, they already have like at least one of those two, either Fatutu or Flutterpage. I see most people have at least one of them. So let's say you have Fatutu already, but you don't have Flutterpage. Then you get Flutterpage from the Souvenir of Companionship. So, right, no matter who you have and who you don't have, you pick the other from the Souvenir of Companionship, so that you have then both. Okay. In case you have Fatutu and Flutterpage, and you play Impromptu, but you don't have Aleph, that is where Aleph comes in. It's spot number 3, right? Wait a minute, let me sort this out a little bit. Fatutu first, Flutterpage second, Aleph third, and then Recoleta comes in at spot number 4. Those 4 characters on your screen right here, those have by far the most amount of value when it comes to who you should pick out of the Souvenir of Companionship. As I said, like specific scenarios, they would occur. Like for example to me, this is the scenario here that occurs to me. One more time. I have Fatutu, I have Flutterpage, I don't play Impromptu, so I don't need Aleph, and I already have Recoleta. So what am I gonna do, right? I'm gonna plan ahead. I see what character will I grab in the future. The answer would be Getian, and there you go. I will probably pick Getian out of the Souvenir of Companionship. Now we will probably get access and find out how the Euphoria updates for A-Knight and Argus will look. That reveal might change a little bit when it comes to niche picks here from the Souvenir of Companionship. But you know, you don't have Fatutu, you pick Fatutu. Whatever you miss out of these 4 characters here, you go for that and pick it out of the Souvenir of Companionship. Now, of course, there are more honorable mentions here. There's one in particular that I want to point out, because there are a lot of Ezio fanboys and a shit ton of people, like almost everyone, pulled for Ezio. So if that's your case and you have Fatutu, Flutter Page, you don't need Aleph, you don't want Recolata because of Body Fat Fuck, you know, all of that kind of jazz, then the probability is very, very high, since like new players for the most part pulled for Ezio. That means you will not have access to the best sub DPS in the game for Ezio, which is Tuesday. You already probably made the huge, gigantic mistake of wasting your resources and pulling for Cassandra, just so you have any sub DPS, in fact, for this Ezio nonsense, right? But Cassandra is, as you probably already realized, is not it. That is a completely garbage, unplayable trash character, right? And if you want to play Ezio no matter what, chances are very, very high, because as I said, mostly new players will have obtained Ezio, that you don't have Tuesday. That's by far the best sub DPS. That is where Ezio shines the most. That's the Poison team. And Poison is then again unplayable if you don't have Tuesday. So I want to throw her out of here as well. She will not be part of any Euphoria banner. She is a little bit of an outdated character though, but in her case that doesn't matter really much, because she is still an archetype defining character for the Poison archetype. So, and after Tuesday I want to throw one more recommendation out there, and that is Mercuria. Mercuria is also a tiny little bit outdated, but she aged like fine wine. Additionally, she will be in the best in slot, in fact, for the Dynamo archetype team in version 2.8, as long as Sharon isn't released yet. Sharon will then replace Mercuria. And the fact why Mercuria is such a good character to have at your disposal is because she has this very unique ability of flat out increasing the critical hit rate of all of her allies by 20 to 30%. That is incredible, because, as I just said, if you are familiar with a lot of different characters, you will realize that there's pretty much no other character that actually increases the critical hit rate of your entire team flat out, just like that, without having any specific requirements attached to it. And critical hit rate is the most beneficial stat in the game that you can increase. It is better than ultimate might or critical damage or max HP or whatever you wanna name. Critical hit rate is the best stat to increase. It outclasses every other stat in this game by a mile. And again, Mercuria is one of the only characters in this game, she's the best character in the game, that does increase critical hit rate for the entire team. That's why she's very good and can be played in many teams. Although you have to keep in mind that she doesn't have her best in slot in any team anymore once Sharon is released. Now, she would be a slottable character, but again, from the 2nd anniversary and onwards, slottable characters are pretty garbage. Because for a very simple reason, that slottable characters cannot be slotted into Blood Tide. They cannot be slotted into Dynamo. They cannot be slotted into Impromptu. And even in the follow-up team, like Mercuria doesn't have her spot there. Sure, she is played in the rank-up team. Maybe Argus will replace her. We will have to wait and see. That would be a best in slot that Mercuria actually has. But the rank-up team is, at least for now, not too extremely prevalent, and Mercuria is in risk to lose her spot to Argus as well, depending on how that Euphoria will upgrade. So again, if you excel at being a slottable character, then you can't be slotted in Bloodhead, you can't be slotted in a Dynamo, you can't be slotted in Impromptu, and then, like, honestly, like, what's the point? If you cannot be slotted into the very best teams in the entire game, then what's the point of even being a slottable character, you know? And that's why Mercuria is very, very good for the reason that I just told you. But yeah, it's more of a niche pick as well. It's pretty much just as Tuesday is. Tuesday is played only in the Poison team and that's it. And then Mercuria is only played in the rank up team and that's about that, right? So yeah, you make that decision for yourself. But again, if you have all of these characters, all four here with Fatutu, Flutterpage, Aleph and Recoleta, then Tuesday and Mercuria are very, very good choices, unless you want to go for a character that will be in the Euphoria banner in the near future. There you go, right? That's all I wanted to tell you about when it comes to the Souvenir of Companionship. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section down below, and or join the Discord server so you can ping me and talk to me directly. Link to that is in the description of this video. But until next time, take care of yourselves, have a great day, and we love this game.